When we talk about strength, what do we usually mean? Often, when people think of being strong, they imagine physical power, wealth, influence, or the ability to control circumstances. In our society, strength is often equated with dominance, being able to bend the world to your will, to impose your desires, or to rise above others in terms of status, recognition, or control. But let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. How often do these things truly protect us? How often do wealth, status, or influence actually shield us from the fragility and vulnerability that life inevitably brings? Time and again, history, and even our own lives show us that these forms of strength are fragile, temporary, and often illusory. Here is the profound truth that the Qur'an and the teachings of our beloved Prophet they emphasize. True strength is not measured by what the world sees. True strength is the kind of strength that comes when Allah holds you. When Allah is with you, no force on earth, no scheme of man, no chain of circumstance can truly break you. This is a revolutionary idea because it shifts our focus from the external to the internal, from reliance on transient, fragile, worldly things to reliance on the eternal, the infinite, the divine. Think for a moment about the countless people in history who, by all worldly measures, should have been broken. The prophets themselves, for instance, faced trials that no human could imagine enduring. Prophet Muhammad was rejected, mocked, and persecuted by his own people for decades. Yet he remained unshaken, not because he had armies behind him, not because he had wealth, not because he could control the circumstances, but because Allah held him. When Allah holds you, you are anchored in a strength that transcends everything else. This is not just about being resilient in the face of difficulty. It is a deeper psychological and spiritual truth. When Allah holds you, your confidence, your peace, and your sense of self-worth do not depend on what others do to you or say about you. Imagine the liberation of a heart that knows it is held by the Creator of the heavens and the earth. Nothing in this world can define your value. Nothing can dictate your destiny unless Allah wills it. That is an empowerment that surpasses anything material, anything temporary. Now, I want you to pause and reflect for a moment on your own life. How often have you found yourself anxious about outcomes you cannot control? How often have fear, doubt, or insecurity undermined your peace of mind? And yet, in those moments, the invitation is always the same. Place your trust in Allah and know that He holds you. The psychology behind this is remarkable. When the mind and heart anchor themselves in the reality of divine support, anxiety, fear, and even despair begin to lose their grip. You are no longer at the mercy of every minor misfortune or opinion of others. You become unshakable not because you have changed the world around you, but because you have changed the world within you. This is not just theoretical. There are countless examples of ordinary individuals like you and me who have experienced moments where they felt powerless. Perhaps it was a sudden loss, a betrayal by a close friend, a failure that seemed catastrophic. In the immediate moment, it feels like everything is collapsing. And yet, when you take a step back and surrender, when you remind yourself that Allah is in control and that He holds you, a profound inner strength begins to emerge. You begin to see that what matters is not how others treat you or how hard life hits you, but how you respond to it. And your response becomes rooted not in reactionary fear or desperation, but in a deep, calm trust in Allah. Consider the profound difference between reliance on the world and reliance on Allah. The world is unpredictable. People change, circumstances shift, fortunes rise and fall. If your confidence is tied to these variables, it is always vulnerable. But if your confidence is tied to Allah, it is eternal. This is why the Qur'an repeatedly calls us to place our trust in Allah and rely upon Allah, and sufficient is Allah as disposer of affairs, Surah Al-Ahzab 33:3. Every time you surrender your heart to Him, you are not losing control. You are gaining the kind of freedom that the world cannot take from you. And here is the subtle yet crucial part. Being held by Allah does not mean life becomes easy. Trials, tests, and challenges will continue to come. The difference is that they no longer have the power to break your spirit. They no longer define your worth or your destiny. Instead, they become reminders that your true strength comes from the one who never abandons, the one whose grasp is firm and everlasting. When you understand this deeply, it changes the way you face the world. You can walk with courage, act with integrity, and endure hardships with a sense of dignity and purpose. It is also important to recognize that this strength is not passive. Being held by Allah does not mean sitting idly and waiting for miracles while ignoring your responsibility. Rather, it is a dynamic strength, a combination of trust and action, reliance and effort. You strive, you plan, you make your best effort, and yet you remain anchored in the understanding that the outcome rests with Allah. That is a powerful paradox. You act as if everything depends on you, yet you trust as if everything depends on Allah. This balance is the essence of true resilience, the hallmark of a soul held by divine support. Let me leave you with a reflection. Life is unpredictable, and the world will challenge you in ways you cannot anticipate. People will doubt you, circumstances will push against you, and failures may come. But if Allah holds you, you are never truly broken. Your peace, your confidence, your dignity, they cannot be taken from you because they are rooted in the one who is eternal. This is not merely comforting, it is empowering. It is the kind of strength that allows you to face every trial with courage, every loss with patience, and every uncertainty with unwavering trust. So, I invite you to ask yourself today, where are you placing your trust? Where is your strength rooted? If it is in wealth, in status, in people, or in circumstances, you are building on sand. But if it is in Allah, if you truly understand that He holds you, then no one, not criticism, not betrayal, not failure, can ever break you. And that, my dear brothers and sisters, is the ultimate liberation. A heart, a mind, and a soul that stand unshakable because they are held by the one who never lets go. Every human being, no matter how confident, successful, or outwardly strong, carries a vulnerability within. It is part of our nature, part of the design of being human. We have fears, doubts, insecurities, and limitations. There are moments when we feel powerless, when the challenges of life seem far beyond our ability to endure. And this is not a flaw. It is the very essence of what makes us human. Recognizing our limitations is the first step toward understanding the incredible depth of the strength that comes from being held by Allah. Think about it for a moment. No matter how powerful someone may seem on the outside, no matter how much influence or control they possess, every human is fragile in the face of forces they cannot control. Illness, death, betrayal, misfortune. These are realities that touch every life. Even kings, generals, and leaders have been brought low by circumstances they could not manage. Human strength, when relied upon in isolation from divine support, is like a house built on sand. It may appear solid, but the first storm, the first unexpected hardship, can shake it to its foundations. This is precisely why the concept of divine protection is so revolutionary. When Allah holds you, your vulnerabilities are no longer liabilities. They are embraced within a protective framework that human strength alone cannot provide. The Qur'an reminds us again and again that human weakness is not a reason for despair, but an opportunity to turn to the one who is all-powerful. Consider the verse. Allah does not burden a soul beyond that it can bear. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:286. This is not just a comforting statement. It is a profound acknowledgement of human limitation combined with the promise of divine support. Our weaknesses are real, yes, but they exist within the context of Allah's encompassing protection. We often forget this in the hustle and pressure of daily life. When things go wrong, when betrayal or loss strikes, when injustice is done, our instinct is to panic, to blame, to despair. We think, if only I had more control, I could have prevented this. But here is the crucial insight. The fact that we are limited, that we cannot control everything, is exactly why we must rely on Allah. Human limitation is not a failure. It is an invitation to divine reliance. It is the bridge that connects our reality with a higher source of security, strength, and resilience. Let us reflect on some historical examples, not just for inspiration, but for understanding the profound principle at work. Look at the story of the prophet Musa Moses, peace be upon him. He was a human being with doubts, fears, and insecurities. He felt inadequate when Allah commanded him to confront Pharaoh, a tyrant with unimaginable power. Musa himself questioned, "How can I face this man when I am weak?" And Allah's response was not to deny his weakness, but to provide the support that transcended it. "Do not fear. I am with you." Surah Taha 20:46. Here, human weakness was not a limitation. It was the context in which divine protection revealed its power. Musa's ultimate success was not because he was stronger than Pharaoh in worldly terms, but because Allah held him. We can see this principle reflected repeatedly in the lives of those who have maintained faith through extreme trials. Ordinary humans without armies or wealth, who faced persecution, social rejection, or personal loss, have triumphed in ways that defy worldly logic. Their strength did not come from personal ability alone. It came from surrender, trust, and divine protection. And this is where the psychological and philosophical depth of the concept becomes clear. When you internalize that Allah is holding you, your weakness becomes a catalyst for strength rather than cause of despair. Let's break this down in practical, human terms. There is a remarkable peace that emerges when you accept that your limitations are natural, expected, and ultimately embraced by Allah. You stop being enslaved by the illusion that you must control everything. You stop being overwhelmed by fear of failure or rejection. Because when you are held by Allah, even your failures and vulnerabilities are enfolded within His wisdom. You may falter, stumble, or even be tested beyond what you imagined, but your soul remains secure in His hands. The awareness of this protection transforms the mind, anxiety diminishes. Confidence grows, not arrogance, not pride, but a profound assurance that you are not alone, that your weaknesses are not the end of the story. This also reframes the way we interpret setbacks and suffering. When a difficulty arises, it is tempting to see it as a reflection of inadequacy or personal failure. We ask, why me, why now? But when viewed through the lens of divine protection, these moments are not punishments but opportunities. They are the moments when our weakness interacts with Allah's strength, revealing a power we could never have achieved on our own. This understanding does not remove the difficulty, but it gives it meaning. It allows you to endure, persevere, and ultimately grow stronger than the circumstances themselves. Philosophically, this is a profound shift. Human culture often glorifies self-reliance, individualism, and control. While these are not inherently wrong, they are limited. They cannot provide the ultimate security that the soul seeks. True strength, as the Qur'an teaches, lies not in isolation but in integration with the divine. Our vulnerabilities, when acknowledged and surrendered to Allah, become the very conduit through which His power flows. Weakness, paradoxically, becomes the foundation for resilience. Now, consider the modern world we live in. Stress, anxiety, competition, and uncertainty are constants. People are measured by achievements, wealth, and influence. Yet the more people try to rely solely on these worldly measures, the more fragile they often feel. The anxiety we experience is, in many ways, the tension between human limitation and the illusion of total control. The remedy is not to deny our limitations or to grasp desperately for control. It is to recognize our humanity and to anchor ourselves in Allah's protection. When we do this, the mind is calmer, the heart is steadier, and the spirit becomes unbreakable. We also need to recognize that this divine protection is active, not passive. It does not mean that challenges will vanish or that life will become effortless. Rather, it means that in the face of any challenge, whether loss, betrayal, or fear, your core remains intact. Your sense of worth, your dignity, your ability to rise again, and your ultimate trajectory in life are secured by Allah's support. This is why the Qur'an repeatedly reassures the believers, "So do not weaken and do not grieve, and you will be superior if you are true believers." Surah Al-Imran 3:139. Superiority here is not dominance over others, but the superior inner strength that comes from divine protection. Let me leave you with this reflection. Every time you feel weak, every time you doubt your ability to endure, remember that weakness is not the opposite of strength when Allah holds you. Weakness becomes the context in which divine strength shines brightest. Your limitations are not obstacles. They are reminders of your humanity and the stage for Allah's power. The human heart, when anchored in the divine, becomes unshakable. Life may challenge you, people may oppose you, and circumstances may push you to the brink, but if Allah is holding you, nothing can truly break you. So, ask yourself today, where are you seeking strength? Are you relying on what the world can provide, or are you resting in the unyielding support of Allah? Recognize your human weakness, embrace it, and let it draw you closer to the one whose protection knows no bounds. And in that surrender, in that divine reliance, you will discover a power that is enduring, unassailable, and eternal. A power that the world can never take from you. Life, by its very nature, is filled with trials. No human existence is untouched by hardship, loss, betrayal, or uncertainty. These moments are universal. They do not discriminate based on age, status, wealth, or knowledge. We all face situations that test our endurance, challenge our values, and push us to the edge of what we believe we can bear. And in those moments, the first instinct for many is to resist, to question, to despair. Why me? Why now? How could this happen? These questions are natural, human, and understandable. But the real question, the one that separates despair from resilience, defeat from spiritual triumph, is this: how do you respond to trials when they arrive? The Qur'an and the Sunnah provide a clear and consistent answer. Patience, coupled with unshakable faith, is the pathway through every trial. Sabr is not a passive resignation to fate, nor is it a quiet acceptance of defeat. It is an active, deliberate stance of the heart and mind, an acknowledgement that life may be difficult, that human capacity is limited, and that ultimate outcomes are governed by Allah's wisdom. In this understanding lies a profound psychological liberation. When you embrace patience and faith, you release yourself from the futile attempt to control everything. You recognize that while your effort matters, the outcome is ultimately in the hands of the one who holds the universe. Let us be clear, patience in trials is not easy. It is not a simple act of waiting or ignoring the reality of suffering. True patience is a discipline of the heart and mind, a conscious choice to trust Allah's wisdom even when the circumstances seem unbearable. Psychologically, this practice reshapes our perception of adversity. It allows us to approach challenges not as destructive forces but as teachers, as instruments of growth. In fact, without trials, we may never fully appreciate our strengths, our resilience, or the depth of Allah's mercy. Consider the Prophet Ayyub, peace be upon him, whose story is perhaps the ultimate illustration of patience in the face of unimaginable trials. He was a man who lost his health, his wealth, and even the comfort of his family. From the outside, his life seemed utterly broken. Yet he did not despair, and he did not allow anger, bitterness, or hopelessness to take root in his heart. Instead, he remained steadfast in his faith and patient in his suffering, continually turning to Allah with humility and trust. The Qur'an says about him, "Indeed, we found him patient, an excellent servant. Indeed, he was one who repeatedly turned back to Allah." Surah Sad 38, 44-45. This is the essence of what it means to endure trials under divine protection. Not a passive waiting for relief, but a proactive, faithful engagement with life, grounded in the certainty that Allah is with you. This principle has profound implications for our own lives. Trials are inevitable. They are part of the human condition. They will come in forms large and small: loss of loved ones, health challenges, financial difficulty, broken relationships, or internal struggles with doubt and fear. The key is not to avoid these challenges, they cannot always be avoided, but to cultivate the inner capacity to face them with patience and faith. Psychologically, this is transformative. When you understand that trials are not arbitrary punishments, but tests imbued with purpose and divine wisdom, your mindset shifts. You become less reactive, less anxious, and more intentional in how you respond. You begin to see that every hardship carries within it the seeds of growth, the opportunity to draw closer to Allah, and the chance to strengthen your character. Philosophically, patience and faith amid trials also redefine the concept of victory. Many people view victory as the absence of difficulty or the accumulation of worldly success. But the Qur'an teaches a different understanding. True victory is measured not by what life spares you, but by how you respond to what life imposes upon you. A person who is patient, steadfast, and faithful even in the midst of adversity is far greater in strength than one who enjoys comfort but crumbles under challenge. This is a perspective that shifts our focus from external validation to internal resilience, from fleeting achievements to eternal stability. It is also crucial to recognize that patience is intertwined with action. The Qur'an repeatedly emphasizes that while we must trust in Allah, we must also strive, persevere, and take steps within our capacity. Patience is not an excuse for inaction or passivity. On the contrary, it is an empowering discipline. It allows you to act decisively without panic, without despair, and without compromising your values. This combination of patience and purposeful action, rooted in faith, creates a formidable inner strength that external forces cannot break. Consider how this applies in practical terms. When you face a setback, perhaps you are dealing with a loss, a failure, or a betrayal, there are multiple ways you could respond. You could react with anger, resentment, or despair, allowing the hardship to define you. Or you could respond with patience, understanding that this moment, though painful, is temporary, and that it is part of a larger divine plan. You could take measured action, seek solutions within your capacity, and simultaneously trust that Allah is guiding the outcome. This approach does not diminish the reality of hardship. It reframes it in a way that preserves dignity, strengthens the soul, and aligns your life with divine wisdom. There is also a profound social dimension to patience and faith amid trials. When you embody this approach, you not only protect your own spirit, but also influence those around you. Others observe your composure, your resilience, and your unwavering faith. This inspires and uplifts them, creating ripples of strength, hope, and encouragement. In a world where despair and cynicism are often contagious, The patient believer becomes a beacon of stability and confidence, a living example of the transformative power of divine support. And yet, we must acknowledge that patience is often tested not just by external hardships, but by internal struggles. Doubts, fears, regrets, and anxieties are perhaps the most persistent trials because they reside in the mind and heart. The believer is called to exercise patience, not only with external events, but also with the self. When doubts arise, when fear threatens, when the temptation to despair whispers, the faithful respond with reflection, prayer, and trust. They remind themselves that Allah holds them, that every trial is purposeful, and that no hardship can overcome the protection and guidance of the divine. This internal discipline is perhaps the most profound form of resilience, because it transforms the very way we perceive and interact with reality. Let us not forget that patience amid trials also has a temporal perspective. Human perception is limited. We see only fragments of our lives, only moments in time. What seems unbearable now may, in hindsight, reveal itself as a necessary chapter in a larger story. When you anchor yourself in Allah's protection and exercise patience, you allow yourself to see beyond the immediate, to trust in a wisdom that transcends your understanding. This perspective brings a serenity that is unachievable through worldly means alone. It is a deep, enduring peace that sustains you, even when the external world remains chaotic and unpredictable. And so, the challenge we face is both simple and profound. Can we cultivate a heart that trusts Allah so completely that trials no longer break us? Can we develop a mind disciplined enough to exercise patience without surrendering action, and faith that is strong enough to endure without despair? The answer, of course, is yes, but it requires conscious effort, reflection, and repeated practice. It requires returning to Allah in prayer, study, and reflection. It requires observing the examples of the prophets and the righteous throughout history. And most importantly, it requires a willingness to accept that life will be challenging. But no challenge can overcome the protection of Allah when He holds you. So, as we face the inevitable trials of life, remember this: patience is not weakness, faith is not passive. Together, they create a power that transcends circumstance, defies adversity, and roots your spirit in something far greater than the fleeting forces of this world. Every trial becomes an opportunity for growth, every hardship a pathway to greater resilience, and every moment of suffering a chance to draw nearer to Allah. Let us conclude this reflection with a thought to carry in your heart. When Allah holds you, trials do not destroy you. They refine you. They are the crucible in which your faith, your character, and your inner strength are tested and strengthened. No matter the severity of hardship, no matter the intensity of suffering, your heart, anchored in patience and faith, remains unshakable. And in that steadfastness lies the ultimate victory, the realization that true strength is not the absence of trials, but the presence of divine support that renders those trials powerless to break. We have spoken about strength, about vulnerability, about patience and faith amid trials. But there is a dimension beyond all of these that is often overlooked. A dimension that is subtle, profound, and transformative: spiritual freedom. Spiritual freedom is the inner liberation that comes when the heart, mind, and soul are anchored in the unwavering protection of Allah. It is the realization that, no matter what the world imposes upon you, no circumstance, no betrayal, no failure, and no injustice can truly reach the core of who you are. When Allah holds you, your spirit is free in a way that is absolute, unassailable, and eternal. Think about how much of human suffering arises not from external events themselves, but from our attachment to them. We suffer because we tie our identity, our value, and our sense of security to things that are fleeting. wealth, status, reputation, relationships, achievements. When these things are threatened, taken away, or lost, we feel broken. But spiritual freedom is the understanding that these external markers do not define you. Your worth is not determined by what the world gives or takes. Your dignity is not subject to the whims of others. The heart that is held by Allah knows this truth deeply. That is the liberation of knowing that your ultimate security rests in the one who is eternal. Psychologically, this kind of freedom is liberating in ways that are hard to overstate. Imagine the peace of mind that comes when no insult, no criticism, and no injustice can shake you. Imagine living in a world full of uncertainty, yet never losing your composure because you are anchored to a source of strength that transcends all uncertainty. This is not a theoretical state. It is a practical, lived reality for those who truly understand what it means to be held by Allah. And this freedom is not achieved by mere intellectual assent. It requires deep, conscious trust, cultivated through reflection, prayer, and surrender. History provides countless examples of individuals who embodied this principle. Consider the Prophet Muhammad (FDFA), who faced relentless opposition, slander, and hostility throughout his mission. Yet his dignity, his peace of heart, and his spiritual composure were never compromised. He was free, not free in the sense of being immune to difficulty, but free in the sense that no hardship could dominate his spirit. This is a distinction worth understanding. Spiritual freedom does not eliminate challenge, but it renders challenge powerless to break the soul. Let us pause and reflect on what this means in our daily lives. How often do we allow external circumstances to dictate our emotions, our choices, and our sense of self? How often do we feel powerless because someone wronged us, or because life did not unfold according to our expectations? These reactions are natural, but they are signs of a heart still tethered to the world rather than anchored in the divine. The challenge, then, is to cultivate a heart that rests in Allah, a mind that trusts Him fully, and a spirit that finds peace in His wisdom. When this alignment occurs, external circumstances lose their grip over us. Spiritual freedom also involves detachment from fear. Fear is one of the most potent forces that binds the human soul. We fear failure, loss, betrayal, illness, and death. These fears can dominate our thinking, dictate our choices, and create unnecessary suffering. But when you internalize the reality that Allah holds you, fear loses its power. It cannot paralyze you, it cannot dictate your decisions, and it cannot diminish your sense of worth. Fear, once overwhelming, becomes a minor concern in the context of divine protection. This is why the Qur'an repeatedly encourages the believers not to fear those who can harm them only outwardly, but to fear Allah alone, who holds the ultimate power over all matters. Consider also the freedom from the need for constant validation. Human beings are social creatures. We seek approval, recognition, and affirmation. And yet, much of our emotional suffering arises when others do not provide what we crave. When you are held by Allah, however, your heart becomes independent of these external validations. Your value, your dignity, and your sense of purpose are grounded in something eternal, not contingent upon the approval of others. This is a profound liberation because it allows you to act with integrity, honesty, and courage without fear of judgment, rejection, or criticism. This spiritual freedom transforms the way we relate to the world. It does not mean disengagement or indifference. Rather, it allows engagement from a position of inner strength, wisdom, and peace. You can navigate relationships, challenges, and responsibilities without being enslaved by anxiety, ego, or fear. Your interactions become deliberate, purposeful, and grounded in ethical and spiritual principles. You are no longer reactive, driven by fear or desire, but proactive, guided by trust in Allah and clarity of intention. Philosophically, spiritual freedom reveals a deeper truth about the nature of reality. The world is transient, ever-changing, and beyond complete human control. To anchor your sense of security in the world is to anchor yourself in sand fragile, unstable, and subject to the whims of circumstance. But when you anchor your heart in Allah, you anchor it in eternity. You are free because your ultimate security, your ultimate refuge, is not in what can be destroyed, lost, or taken away, but in the one who cannot be overpowered, deceived, or undone. This freedom also gives rise to a profound resilience. When the heart is anchored in Allah, hardships may still arrive, but they cannot dominate or destroy the spirit. Losses may occur, but they do not define the soul. Injustice may happen, but it cannot strip you of dignity or hope. This inner resilience is the product of a life rooted in divine trust, patience, and faith. A life that understands that ultimate strength is not measured by avoidance of challenge, but by the integrity and steadiness of the spirit in the face of challenge. Moreover, spiritual freedom is deeply connected to gratitude. When your heart rests in Allah, every blessing, every challenge, and every circumstance is seen through the lens of divine wisdom. Gratitude flows naturally, not as a superficial act, but as a lived experience. Even in difficulty, there is a sense of thankfulness for the opportunity to grow, to draw closer to Allah, and to exercise patience and trust. Gratitude, in turn, reinforces peace, resilience, and the sense of spiritual liberation. Let us also consider the social and communal implications. A spiritually free individual is a source of calm, strength, and inspiration for others. When others observe your composure, your confidence, and your unwavering faith in the face of difficulty, it encourages them to seek the same freedom. You become a beacon of hope in a world often dominated by fear, anxiety, and instability. Spiritual freedom, therefore, is not only personal. It is transformative for the wider community, creating a ripple effect of resilience, trust, and peace. And yet, achieving this freedom requires conscious effort. It requires constant self-reflection, prayer, remembrance, and alignment with the divine. It requires cultivating a mindset that values eternal security over temporary gains, inner peace over external validation, and trust in Allah over reliance on fragile human measures. It is a lifelong journey, a daily practice, and a continuous recommitment to the principle that if Allah holds you, no one can break you. As we bring this reflection to a close, I want you to consider the profound implication of this truth. Life will challenge you, people will oppose you, circumstances will fluctuate, and the world will test you in countless ways. But if you anchor yourself in Allah, if you cultivate patience, faith, and trust, then no challenge can truly touch the core of your being. You are free, not free from difficulty, but free from being dominated by it. You are strong not because of what you control, but because of who holds you. And you are empowered, not by worldly means, but by the eternal, unshakable protection of Allah. So, let this be your reflection today. Spiritual freedom is not a distant ideal. It is attainable here and now through surrender, trust, and alignment with Allah. When your heart rests in His hands, your spirit becomes unbreakable, your mind becomes calm, and your soul becomes truly free. And in this freedom lies the ultimate victory, a life lived with dignity, courage, and unshakable peace, no matter what the world may bring.